I see the storm behind your eyes. Every word unsaid feels like a lie.
We walked this road through fire and rain, but giving up would be in vain. The night is cold, but your hand in mine feels like the world can still be kind.
If the shadows pull us apart, hold on to me, don't break my heart.
We can't end, not tonight, not like this. Hold me close, feel our last kiss. Through the pain, through the fear, through every falling tear. We can't end, let this love fight until the morning light. We can't end. Your voice still lingers like a melody. Every note reminds me of what we could be. I've felt the cracks, I've seen the fall, but I won't surrender it all. Let's chase the night until it bends. Rewrite the story we can end. Even if the world tries to tear us apart, I'll keep you safe inside my heart. We can't end, not tonight, not like this. Hold me close, feel our last kiss. Through the pain, through the fear, through every falling tear. We can't end, let this love fight until the morning light. We can't end. Don't say goodbye, not tonight. I won't let go, hold me tight. Every shadow fades in your eyes. I'll be here, love never dies. We can't end, not now, not ever. Like tomorrow's ours to take. Through the storm, through the pain, through every drop of rain. We can't end, let this love fight forever defend. We can't end. So don't let go. We can't end.
I see the storm behind your eyes. Every word unsaid feels like a lie.
Muy buena tarde para todos. Bienvenidos a la clase del día de hoy. Johan, Dubán y José Gabriel. Hoy vamos a tratar un tema muy particular y vamos a estar trabajando un poco de Why English Matters, Opportunities, Communication and Global Connection. ¿Qué creen que significa esto para ustedes? Why English Matters, Opportunities, Communication and Global Connection. Son las tres preguntas muy importantes sobre por qué el inglés importa, las oportunidades de comunicación y una conexión global, ¿verdad? ¿Por qué creen que el inglés importa? Why English Matters es la pregunta. ¿Por qué creen o consideran que el inglés importa? Cuente. Johan,
Porque nos abre puertas para el tema laboral.
sí, muy bien. Por tema laboral es muy importante tenerlo en cuenta. ¿Por qué creen más?
A nivel personal, para nuestro crecimiento también es muy importante.
Así. ¿Por qué creen más que importa?
Por la facilidad que nos puede brindar en el momento que salgamos del país o inclusive aquí mismo para interactuar con nuevas personas.
Así es. Muy bien. Aquí tengo estas dos preguntas. Why English is important? Y where do you hear English? ¿Por qué el inglés es importante? ¿Y dónde escuchamos el inglés? Aparte de mis clases, pues. ¿Dónde creen que lo escuchan y por qué es importante el inglés? Why is English important and where do you hear English?
Pues lo escuchamos en todos lados, se escuchan en las canciones que oímos, en las noticias, programas de televisión, conversaciones.
¿Dónde lo podemos escuchar?
Pues en mi caso particular, yo ahorita lo escucho mucho es en las noches, ya que pues me gusta mucho ver la NBA y pues en Colombia es muy difícil de que haya transmisión con narración en español. Entonces pues la veo en inglés.
Muy bien. ¿Dónde más? Pues si están viendo la parte de la NASA del ARTREM ese, también lo pueden escuchar y mirar. Hay muchas maneras de escuchar. Si están pues con la parte de coordinación de procesos logísticos, muchas veces hay temas que también tratan en inglés. En ocasiones, si están diseñando, si están programando, también hay muchas cosas que se habla del tema, ¿verdad? Vamos a ver un video corto voy a colocárselos aquí, y dice The Health Benefits of Learning a Foreign Language, que es los beneficios de aprender un idioma extranjero, ¿verdad? Que puede ser inglés, francés, el que ustedes deseen. Entonces, vamos a ver estos videos, este pequeño video.
Learning a foreign language is good for you for so many reasons. Why should I learn English? Is not a question people ask themselves a lot these days, is it? English is probably going to become the world's lingua franca if it's not already. Today, English is the most widely used language for newspaper, book, and scientific publishing, international telecommunications, international trade, mass entertainment, diplomacy, and, of course, the internet. There are now more than 8,000 courses taught completely in English by leading universities in non-English speaking countries. So, for people like me, non-native English speakers, it would seem that if we want to keep up with the world, learning at least one foreign language, namely English, is a must. We learn it to find a good job, to be more successful, or even to immigrate. I've been learning English since I was little. At first, it was my parents who taught me, which is kind of funny because neither of them spoke any English back then. and they have successfully avoided learning it for the next 25 years. In fact, when I got my bachelor's degree in linguistics, my mom said, "Good job, honey. What's next for you? Are you now going to get a real degree?" After my studies, I worked as an English teacher. And whenever I taught an introductory class, I would ask my students, "Why do you want to learn a foreign language?" The answers I would usually get were more or less similar, but before I share them, I would like to ask you to go back for a moment. Think of the time you first started learning a foreign language. Do you remember why? The answers my students would give were, "My parents make me. I want to understand social media content. I want to travel. I want to get a good job." And a lot of people also acknowledge that learning a language is good for you in general. But if we stop and think about it, work, travel, good marks at school, watching films are all amazing, noble reasons to learn a foreign language. But can you get all that without actually learning? I think we probably can. If we go along with this idea, it takes only a little thought to grasp what you can actually do, even if you don't understand a word in English or any other foreign language. For example, with the technology we have today, software can translate a whole web page into your native language in a split second. There are apps that can translate almost any text captured by your smartphone camera in real time, and most media are served to you with subtitles or a voiceover available almost immediately after the recording is made. Not to mention those lucky enough to be born into English-speaking families. They should be fine, right? And here we come back to this vague learning a language is good for you. And it is. It can bring many benefits, including those that can improve the quality of your life and indeed your health, which is a nice bonus for those of us who started learning it for something else. It's like when you buy a pack of breakfast cereal and here's a free sticker inside. Let's move on now and take a closer look at some of these benefits. I like to visualize concepts. It helps me give form to abstract ideas and make them more simple. I like to imagine every person as a musician. Let's start with somebody who can only speak one language. You probably even know someone like that. Can you picture them in your mind's eye? Let's assume that this person was born and raised in their native country. They have been able to get by with their native language, be it work, travel, and leisure. Now, if we visualize some more and give this person an instrument, in some sense, we can compare their brain to a music box. Now, how does the box work? You spin the handle and magic happens. Beautiful. Does the trick. But the thing about the box is that it can only play one tune. The mechanism is kind of embedded into the box, so changing it is a lot of work. You repeat one and the same movement all over again. Now, we have bilinguals. In comparison to monolinguals, they have twice as many choices on how to deliver an idea. But it's not that simple. When bilinguals use the target language, they actually activate both languages that they know. It means that there is always this competition going on in their heads between the two languages. They have to be constantly ready to respond in one language and suppress the other one. Instead of a music box, I would give them a tape recorder and 2 tapes. Not quite an instrument, but can play music too. Now, if you're bilingual, your native tape is the one you know best. Depending on how well you know your second language, the other one could be secondary. So each time you need to play a word or a phrase, it takes you time to get the native tape out, insert the other one, and then find the word or a phrase that you're looking for. In addition to that, you sometimes forget where exactly it is, or even if this word is even on the tape. Each time there is this switch between these mental tapes, it takes you mental effort. It's an exercise. And like with all exercises, it gets easier and easier the more you do it, until you know the tape inside out. And with each new language, your musical instrument gets more elaborate, like adding new keys to a piano. Some of them you know better, some worse, but each time you switch, you get more fluent. And as you learn another, third, fourth language, you pick it up faster. You understand the logic the languages might share, and you are more likely to overcome the barriers to speaking with your next foreign language. And that mental effort translates onto the other areas of your life. It opens your mind for greater opportunities and prepares you for possible challenges. And that is not only true for those who started learning a language early in life. That's right, you can pick up a new language today and start enjoying all the amazing benefits it brings. It can even influence your life indirectly, opening new paths for you. In 2020, like many others, I found myself in quarantine. My boyfriend, my cat, and I in a tiny one-room apartment for several months. I figured I needed a new hobby to stay sane. It needed to be a one-person indoor hobby, and it needed to be cheap. So I decided I would start learning a new language. I didn't have a preference, so I did several rounds of flipping a coin, and it turned out to be Finnish. I armed myself with YouTube videos and learning apps, and soon enough, I learned some stuff about some Finnish delicacies, some Finnish towns, one famous Finnish poet. Having this tiny connection to the culture made me want to dig deeper. And before I even realized it, it's December, and I'm applying to study at a Finnish university. Which started small, became this huge change that helped me out of depression and gave me purpose. Our brains are picky. Our brains love new things and give us a handsome reward and dopamine in exchange for novelty. That's why I have so many pairs of shoes. Usually when you learn something new, the brain-boosting benefits decrease as soon as you get your eureka moment. For example, you want to learn to ride a bicycle. You start trying, you go, and it feels great. But as soon as you get a hang on it, it's not the same satisfaction-wise, it's just going. But that doesn't happen when you learn a foreign language. Instead, your brain needs to keep working, constantly plan, concentrate, and make decisions. Every day is a school day. It never ends, which to me can be both amazing and frustrating. I have been learning English for ages. I have been teaching it as a second language for several years, and I still make mistakes, and there are still words that I don't know. Not so long ago, I was watching some British TV, and I saw the word Satsuma in a joke. Of course, I didn't get the joke. I'd never heard nor seen this word before. At that moment, I felt almost angry at all the English people who decided to adopt this word into the language just to make my life more difficult. But I did make a mental note. Apparently, it's a kind of a fruit, like mandarin or tangerine. I can never tell the difference between those because in my native language, we have one word to describe all three. Later, I was abroad in a supermarket and I saw this sign, Satsuma. I pointed to it and I said out loud, there were people around me, "You little piece of fruit. I know you." And it felt really good. Our brains like to be proud. We like achievement. We like to be the best. And this is the best kind of achievement because it's not competitive. the only person you're trying to outbest is you. And each new word, phrase, and sentence brings you victory. It doesn't have to be a big victory. It can be as small as understanding a joke in a foreign language. It's never too early to learn, and it's never too late. Thank you.
So, what do you think? ¿Qué creen que pueden? Estoy hablando solo. ¿Qué ideas nuevas pueden tener o sacar del video que acaban de visualizar? ¿Qué videos o qué ideas nuevas? What new ideas did you hear about it? ¿Qué ideas nuevas pudieron sacar del nuevo video? Cuéntenme.
Pues yo creo que el tema de la motivación que tuvo mientras estuvo en el tiempo de la cuarentena, que pues buscó cosas nuevas para hacer, como para hobbies, pasar el tiempo, y lo que la impulsó a buscar nuevos conocimientos después de que salió de la cuarentena.
Ok, muy bien. ¿Qué más pudimos obtener al respecto? Quiero escuchar. Necesito escuchar al menos otra persona más. ¿Qué ideas nuevas? Did you hear any new idea? ¿Escucharon nuevas ideas aparte de la motivación? Bueno, vamos a continuar. Aquí tenemos una parte para que sepan, los coloqué en el medio del chat. Y tenemos la explicación de cada uno de los key points. Tenemos con respecto a global communication. English is the most widely used language in the world. Quiere decir que es el más usado en todo el mundo. Y o sea, puedes viajar, por ejemplo, quieren viajar a Dubái. El inglés es uno de los idiomas que se habla allá y te puedes comunicar. Quieres viajar a Turquía, quieres viajar a Grecia, quieres viajar pues a Estados Unidos o Canadá, quieres viajar a otro país diferente, el inglés es uno de las más habladas. It helps people communicate with others from different countries. Te va a ayudar a comunicarte pues con diferentes personas alrededor del mundo. Entonces, si alguien viene de Francia, de otro país, el inglés te va a ayudar a hablar con esa persona y te puede ayudar que ustedes estén trabajando en una empresa, en FedEx, bueno, en fin. Y si llega alguien del extranjero que no sepa hablar español, pues el inglés va a ser de gran ayuda. Job opportunities. Many companies require English, better jobs, and higher salary. El inglés es muy importante. Y si sabes el inglés, te pueden tener un salario mejor, ¿verdad? Mejor oportunidad laboral. Si estamos aquí en Colombia. Education and technology. Most information on the internet is in English. Access to courses, books, and international education. Entonces, pues con el internet, o sea, si van a averiguar sobre un tema en específico, está en inglés, libros, cursos y educación internacional lo van a encontrar ahí y es de gran importancia para ustedes. Ahora, vamos a hacer algo para que ustedes me participen. Aquí tenemos una pregunta. How will English help me in the future? ¿Cómo el inglés me ayudará en el futuro? La idea es que Johan, José Gabriel, Edith y Sebas me digan, cada uno me va a hablar. Y si no pueden hablar en este momento, me lo pueden escribir por medio del chat, al menos 2 ideas de cómo el inglés te va a ayudar en el futuro. Pueden decirme en este momento cómo el inglés te puede ayudar en el futuro. Johan, José, Edith y Sebas.
Como veníamos diciendo, profe, yo creo que el inglés me ayudará a mí en el futuro para poder inclusive enseñárselo a mis hijos y tener una mejor comunicación con no una mejor comunicación, sino una
Muy bien.
podérselo transmitir a ellos, que ellos también aprendan esa segunda lengua.
Muy bien, José Gabriel. Excelente. Vamos, Edith o Sebas, Johan me está escribiendo en este momento. Buscar nuevas oportunidades laborales, interactuar con personas de otros países, puesto que mi idea es poder viajar fuera del país. Muy bien. Edith y Sebas. Edith me está escribiendo. Vamos a esperar a Sebas, que también necesito que me escriba y que participe. Una herramienta para comunicar música además a los demás, mis ideas. Muy bien. Aquí está la otra pregunta. Where will I use English? ¿Dónde yo podría usar el inglés? ¿Dónde yo podría utilizar el inglés? ¿Dónde yo podría utilizar el idioma? ¿Dónde yo podría utilizar el inglés? Veamos, en cursos de sistema, ya que se manejan muchas cosas en inglés. Muy bien. Y como te digo, si están en algún sitio y llega un extranjero, pues pueden comunicarse con él en inglés o con la persona, él o ella, para poder hablar del tema. Muy bien, Jordan. En todos los aspectos, ya que ahora está el inglés por todos lados, exactamente, Edith. Está en todos lados y podemos encontrarlos en cualquier parte. José. Y aquí tenemos una última pregunta. Dice, what is one reason you will continue learning English? Una razón para aprender inglés, para continuar aprendiendo inglés.
Yo creería que una de las razones para aprender inglés es que ya ahorita el mundo, pues no ahorita, sino siempre se ha manejado como bajo ese idioma primario. O sea, el tema de la comunicación se ha vuelto esencial en aprenderlo. Ya para muchas ofertas laborales lo exigen. eh, ya hay muchas personas extranjeras que visitan el país y pues quedaría como por parte de uno no poderles brindar una información por no poderles entender lo que ellos dicen.
Así es, muy bien. Muy bien. En videojuegos también encontramos, ¿verdad? Vamos a ver un último videíto pues relacionado con esto, con este tema, y es learning a language, speak it like you are playing a video game. ¿Qué quiere decir con esto? Aprendiendo un idioma, como les dije, puede ser inglés, francés, alemán, el que ustedes desean, chino, coreano, por el tema que vienen está el K-pop, vienen a Colombia un grupo de coreano, ¿verdad? Y se habla como si tú estuvieras en un juego, un videojuego. Ahora mismo está la moda de los videojuegos. Entonces, vamos a visualizar.
So for the past 20 years, I've been helping Malaysians and other Southeast Asians to speak better English. And through training thousands of Southeast Asians, I've discovered a very surprising truth. I've discovered that how well somebody communicates in English actually has very little to do with their English level. It has a lot to do with their attitude towards English. There are people out there who have a very, very low level of English and they can communicate very, very well. One of them that I remember was a student, a participant of mine named Faisal. He was a factory supervisor, English level very, very low. But this guy could just sit and listen to anybody very calmly, clearly, and then he could respond, absolutely express his thoughts beautifully at a very low level of English. So today I want to share with you what is so different about people like Faisal. How do they do it? And second of all, why is this so important, not only to you, but to your children, to your community, and to the future of Malaysia? And third of all, what's one thing you can do starting today if you want to speak with that calm, clear confidence that people like Faisal has? So first of all, what is so different? How do people like Faisal do it? So to answer that question, I'm going to take you back about 10 years, okay? So I was training staff at that time, and my daughter at that time was taking piano lessons. And I started to notice two really strong similarities between my daughter's attitude or thinking towards playing the piano and a lot of Malaysians' thinking or attitude towards English. Now, first of all, I should tell you, my daughter absolutely hated piano, hated the lessons, hated practicing. This is my daughter practicing piano, okay? This is as good as it got. This is the real thing. And she dreaded going to piano lessons because to my daughter, going to piano lessons, she was filled with this sort of dread because it was all about not screwing up, right? Because like for a lot of piano students, to both my daughter and her teacher, her success in piano was measured by how few mistakes she made. Now, at the same time, I noticed that a lot of Malaysians went into English conversations with the same sort of feeling of dread, this sort of feeling that they were going to be judged by how many mistakes they were going to make and whether or not they were going to screw up. Now, the second similarity that I noticed was to do with self-image. You see, my daughter, she knew what good piano sounded like, right? Because we've all heard good piano. And she knew what her level was. And she knew how long she'd have to play for to play like that. And a lot of Malaysians, I noticed, had this idea of what good, proper English is supposed to sound like. And what I see a lot of you nodding, and what their English sounded like, and how far they'd have to go to get there. And they also felt like they were, like my daughter, just bad piano player, bad English speaker, right? My English not so good lah, cannot, sorry, shaya, cannot lah. So I could see these similarities, but I still couldn't figure out, okay, what is it about these people like Faisal that are so different, that can just do it smoothly, calmly, with confidence? And one day I discovered that answer, and I discovered it quite by chance. It was a day when my computer broke down and I had to go to a cyber cafe. Now, okay, it was my first time, and I discovered cyber cafes are disgusting places, okay? They're really gross. They're smelly, and they're filled with boys, and they're all playing noisy, violent games. They're just disgusting places. But I had to go there. So I sit down, and I start noticing this guy beside me, and I become very, very interested in this guy next to me. Now, this guy is playing this game that is basically, it's like shooting people until they die, and that's it, right? That's the game, right? And I'm noticing that this guy is not very good. He's like, in fact, terrible, right? Because I'm looking and I'm seeing like a lot of shooting and not much dying, right? But what really interested me was behind this lousy player were three of his friends sort of standing there watching him play. And what I really noticed was, even though this guy was terrible, even though his friends were watching him, there was no embarrassment. There was no feeling of being judged. There was no shyness. In fact, quite the opposite. This guy's like totally focused on the bad guy, smile on his face. All he can think about is killing these guys, right? And I'm watching him and I suddenly realized, this is it. This is the same attitude that people like Faisal have when they speak English. Just like this guy, when Faisal goes into an English conversation, he doesn't feel judged. He's entirely focused on the person that he's speaking to and the result he wants to get. He's got no self-awareness, no thoughts about his own mistakes. Now, I want to share with you a real, true example to paint a picture of somebody who speaks English like they're playing piano and someone who speaks English like they're playing a computer game. And this is a true story. Happened to me. A while ago, I was in a pharmacy. I had to buy Omega. My doctor said I should get Omega. And I go to the shelf, there's tons of Omega. There's Omega that's high in DHA, Omega that's high in EPA, and I don't know which one to buy. Now, the sales rep happened to be there, and I saw she was like this well-dressed professional woman. I walk over to her, and I see this look as she sees me, this sort of, it's a look I recognize very well. Her eyes go all wide. It's sort of that panic, oh my God, I got to speak to a native speaker, and she's going to judge me and notice my mistakes. I go up to her, and I explain my situation, which Omega do I get? And she starts explaining to me everything about DHA and EPA you could possibly imagine. She speaks very quickly, goes all around in circles, and when she finishes, no idea what to buy. So I turn to the girl behind the counter. Now, the girl behind the counter, I heard her before, her English level is very low. But when I walk over to her, this girl, there's no fear. In fact, she's just looking at me. You know that look? Like, yeah, okay, so how? Right. Yeah, I've been in Malaysia a long time. So I go up to her and I explain the problem, EPA, DHA. She looks at me, she says, okay, EPA for heart. DHA for brain. Your heart okay or not? So I said, yeah, I said my heart is really, I think it's pretty good. She says, your brain okay or not? I said, yeah, no, no, my brain is not as good as it used to be. She looked, she said, okay la, you take omega DHA, can? Problem solved, right? So we've got two different kinds of communicators. We've got the one who's got a high level, but totally focused on herself and getting it right, and therefore very ineffective. We've got another one, low level, totally focused on the person she's talking to and getting a result, effective. And therein lies the difference. Now, why is this distinction so important, not just to you, to your children, but to the future of Malaysia and countries like Malaysia? And to answer that, let's take a look at who actually is speaking English in the world today, okay? So if we looked at all of the English conversations in the whole world taking place right now on planet Earth, we would see that for every native speaker, like me, there are 5 non-native speakers. And if we listen to every conversation in English on planet Earth right now, we would notice that 96% of those conversations involved non-native English speakers. Only 4% of those conversations are native speaker to native speaker. This is not my language anymore. This language belongs to you. It's not an art to be mastered. It's just a tool to use to get a result. And I want to give you a real life example of what English is today in the world, real English today. This is another true story. I was at a barbecue a little while ago. This was a barbecue for engineers from all over the world. And they were making hot dogs. Now, some of the hot dogs were regular hot dogs, and some were these cheese hot dogs, you know, with the cheese in the middle. French engineer is cooking the hot dogs, and he turns to this Korean engineer and he says, would you like a hot dog? And the Korean guy says, yes, please. He says, do you want the cheese? And the Korean guy looks around at the table. He says, I no see cheese. French guy says, the hot dog contains the cheese. Korean guy doesn't understand him, right? So the French engineer tries again. The hot dog is making from with the cheese. Korean guy still doesn't understand. He tries again. He says, the hot dog is coming from, no, the cheese is coming from the hot dog. Korean guy cannot understand. Now this Japanese engineer who's been listening to this conversation turns to the Korean engineer and he says, cheese integrator. He understands, okay? Everybody understands. So this is what English is today. It's just a tool to play around with to get a result, like a computer game. Now the challenge is that we know in schools all around the world, right? English is not really being taught like it's a tool to play with. It's still being taught like it's an art to master. And students are judged more on correctness than on clarity. Some of you might remember the old comprehension exam in school. Does anybody remember in school when you would get a question about a text that you read? You'd have to read through some text, right? And then answer a question to show that you understood the text. And this may have happened to you, that you showed that you understood the text, but you got a big X because you made a little grammar mistake. Like this student. Now this student clearly understood paragraph 4, but no, not correct, because he left the letter N off the word environment. But in the real world, what would matter? In the real world, what would matter is, did you understand the email or did you understand your customer so that you can go ahead and take action? Now, the problem that I see here over and over is that people take the attitude they developed about English in school and they bring it into their adult life and into their work. And if you're in a stressful situation and you're having a conversation and you're trying to give a result to someone and say it correctly, your brain multitasks. It cannot do two things at once. And what I see is the brain just shutting down. And you may recognize these three symptoms of the brain shutting down. The first one is that your listening goes. Someone's talking to you and you're so busy thinking about how you're going to respond and express yourself correctly, you don't actually hear what the other person said. And I can see a lot of nodding in the audience. The second thing to go is your speaking. Your mind sort of shuts down and that vocabulary you do know just disappears and the words don't come out. The third thing to go is your confidence. And the worst thing about this is you may only be confident because you cannot express yourself clearly, but to the person talking to you, they may misunderstand this as a lack of confidence in your ability to do the job, to perform. So if you want to speak English like Faisal with that great confidence, here's the one thing that you can do. When you speak, don't focus on yourself. Focus on the other person and the result you want to achieve. Imagine a next generation of Malaysians, all with that wonderful confidence in communication that Faisal has at any level of English. Because let's remember that English today, it's not an art to be mastered. It's just a tool to use to get a result. And that tool belongs to you. Thank you.
Entonces, eso es lo que quería compartir con ustedes en el día de hoy, la importancia del inglés y que este fuera diferente a estar realizando cualquier actividad o esto. Entonces, espero que hayan disfrutado la clase del día de hoy y cualquier cosa, inquietud que tengan, me la hacen saber. Gracias a todos por su participación y que pasen un muy feliz día.
Vale, profe, muchísimas gracias. Buena tarde para todos.
Que pasen un feliz día.
Muchísimas gracias, profe.
Bye, bye.
Hasta luego.
See you later. Dime, José.
Hasta luego, profe. Muchísimas gracias.
Bye, bye. See you later.